Hello, I'm Gemma and this is NonFic Books, and today, obviously, it's a little bit different because I have my gorgeous best friend Becky here because I want to ask her a few questions about her book, Warfare and Weaponry in Dynastic Egypt. As many of you saw this in one of my recommendation videos, I think this is awesome, although I'm going to put it down because like two of us in this in one place is not a good idea. And I thought I'd ask her some questions about writing a book and her subject. So basically, first of all, why weapons and warfare in ancient Egypt, or dynastic Egypt?
Well, for one thing, they're pretty awesome. For another, always had a fascination with weaponry and warfare from medieval period onwards. Got to university, studied archaeology with my lovely friend, and went on to study Egyptology, and my supervisor at the time had said, oh, there's some very nice weapons in Harrogate Museum that we could have a look at. So it just snowballed from there, and I moved into looking at all the different weapons and warfare in ancient Egypt. It was a very nice way to spend 4 years.
And something that you won't really know unless you actually read the book is there's quite a lot about women in there. Could you tell us a little bit about women and when it comes to warfare in Egypt?
Yes, it's a subject that's not been looked at very well, considering that ancient Egyptian warfare has been hugely studied in the past, but looking at women involved in warfare just hadn't really been looked at that much, or if it had been sort of swept under the carpet. So again, I had a pretty cool supervisor who was very into sort of feminist archaeology as well, and it was just fascinating to find all the different examples of women who'd used weaponry or had actually taken active part in warfare. You know, one who comes up quite a bit in the book is a lady called Queen Ahotep, who, after her husband Seqenenre died, she actually led the troops into battle to claim victory for him. And she was buried with 3 medals called the Golden Flies of Valor, which you could only earn if you'd personally excelled in battle. And there's other examples of Nefertiti, for example, as pharaoh using a Kapesh sword to execute a prisoner. And lots of examples of women being buried with weaponry that was actually functional, useful weaponry.
And it's great, you look at a lot of the sort of the scholarship about ancient Egypt and they find these mummies that have boobs and female parts, and obviously they're hermaphrodite if they are with weapons, because a woman couldn't possibly have actually done it.
Yeah.
And what's that tablet or hieroglyphs where it's the town being invaded?
Oh, the Shashe, yeah. It's a town from the tomb of a town scene from the tomb of Anta in the Shashe, where it's just an image showing this town being invaded by the Badawi invaders, and all the men have gone off to battle elsewhere. The town is being defended by the women, and the women are pretty brutal about defending their town.
Awesome.
And the only male presence in this entire image is the male mayor of the town, who is sat in the corner weeping, wailing and tearing his hair out. The women are the ones getting on with it and taking on the attackers, and actually doing a pretty good job of it. It's
sounds quite like life.
Yeah, very much so.
If I can find this image, I will leave a link to it down below if you can, so you can go and see it. Otherwise, buy her book and then you'll find out about it. Right, the process of actually writing a book. How did that go? Was that a lot of work? How was it to actually turn it into a book? Because if you don't know, this is actually something Becky studied and then has since turned it into the book.
Yeah, so the sort of main basis of the work was from my MPhil thesis from a few years ago. I found it difficult simply because I was trying to write this book and I was working full time at the same time. So weekends and evenings were devoted to the book. So all in all, it took a couple of years to actually finish writing it. The publishers were very good. There were a few ups and downs. I had a co-author at one stage. Co-author, for reasons beyond his control, had to drop out. And so it was just me writing the book, which meant the deadline got extended a couple of times. And again, the publishers were fantastic, really understanding of all these various different changes. I enjoyed it. It was easier in some respects because I had the basis from my thesis. I wasn't starting entirely from scratch and I was already pretty familiar with the subject. I had already done a lot of the research. It was just difficult sitting down and actually starting it and writing it and trying to get everything into place. So yeah, I enjoyed it, but it was difficult and took up a couple of years.
But I think definitely what you may not know is part of it was experimental archaeology, and that is really cool. So tell us about that, and if you're squeamish or vegan, probably stop watching
Yes,
now.
I would, yes. No, that was the most fun. One thing that, again, my supervisor was very keen on was using experimental archaeology. So most of the time, experimental archaeology is flint knapping or leatherwork, or I mean, there's a huge multitude of different types of experimental
Not normally too many with weapons.
Yes. So one of the most fun things that I did was I had some replica weapons made. Initially, there were some that had been made for my supervisor, a couple of maces, which we tried when I was a master's student. But for my MPhil degree, we wanted to try out all the other weapons. So there was this brilliant Bronze Age swordsmith down in Cornwall who was just fantastic and made 3 weapons for me that were exact replicas of ancient Egyptian weapons. So the flashiest one was the curved Kapesh sword, which was an exact replica of one found in Tutankhamun's tomb. Another one was an axe head that was an exact replica of one found in the British Museum from the 18th dynasty. And then finally there was a gorgeous dagger that was a replica of one from the era of Queen Ahotep. So that lady who was, defending her people, leading people into battle earlier on. So yeah, they were just gorgeous, and this chap posted them up to me through Royal Mail. These weapons arrived and we tested them out on pig remains. And I know that sounds pretty grotty and it's a bit squeamish for some people, but actually pig is the best proxy for human bodies, and they wouldn't let me use undergraduates.
Sadly.
Yeah. The undergraduates weren't averse to the idea. Some of them I might have, some of the ones I was teaching, but generally the university had said a big no to testing it out on fellow students. But yeah, so there was a farm in Yorkshire that had some piglets that had either been stillborn or had been, had just died very young. Those are seen as waste to them, so they were quite happy to donate these to the archaeology department, and we're testing out the weapons on them.
Don't worry, there are no images in this, but if you do read the book, you can see some images.
Gory images in the book, yes. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was myself, another lady, and a chap were testing it out to see the difference between when the weapons were wielded by women or by men. Completely untrained, the 3 of us. No one had any military experience physically. But it was very interesting.
Because that's one of the criticisms, is that women couldn't possibly have had the skills or the strength to use these weapons, which are like heavy and sharp. And...
Yes. Yeah, and that is silly because, obviously there are some physical differences between men and women, depending on how you look at it. But a very highly trained woman, particularly some of the women in 18th dynasty Egypt, could absolutely have wielded these weapons just as well, if not better, than some of the men,
Especially people's lives were more physical. They were stronger than most of us who sort of have much more desk-based or sat-down sort of lives.
Well, some research done on what is supposedly the body of Nefertiti shows that whoever this woman is, and we're pretty sure she's Nefertiti, she was highly trained in horseback riding, in driving chariots, in the way her muscle tone is from these mummified remains. She was absolutely capable of wielding these weapons, of driving chariots, of riding horses, taking part in warfare. And the point of my book is not to say that the women definitely did do it, just that there were examples of it. They may have been rare, but they were there, and that they could do it. And we know that women can do this. We know that women nowadays can easily do a lot of these sort of physical activities that were previously sort of closed to them through society's decision.
And since you've had the book published and a little bit beforehand, you've gone into schools and sort of chatted about this sort of stuff and about Egypt to school kids.
Yeah.
So tell me about their reaction. What sort of thing do they like about it?
The kids absolutely love it. It's key stage 3, I think, I talked to, so the sort of 9-10-year-olds.
Who didn't want to be an Egyptologist at that age anyway?
Oh,
I
gosh,
did.
yes,
She did. I think most people who ever studied history or archaeology definitely did.
I decided I was going to be an Egyptologist when I was 7 years old. After a school trip to Manchester Museum, you can't really get away from that. But the kids absolutely love it. I take the weapons in under very careful supervision from the teachers, obviously. And the kids they love learning about Egypt. They love learning about mummification in particular is a favourite of the children. Talking about how all the organs get taken out, how the brains get drained out of the bodies, and the kids love it. And they love learning about the weaponry, the warfare, and they love learning about the women taking part in it. The fact that women did use weaponry as well as the men is a big part of the sort of lectures I do in schools, and they really like it. And there's one school that I go to in particular where the teacher brings in watermelons, and I give a demonstration from a suitable distance of just how effective these weapons are, and the teacher in fact does as well. He absolutely loves it, and it's a nice yearly treat for the kids.
Seriously, school teachers, why aren't you doing stuff like this? Like, seriously, mind would have been blown if I'd have been at school doing that instead of, like, drawing Mott and Bailey castles.
Which is also fun, but, you know, demonstrations of cool ancient Egyptian weaponry is much more fun. Absolutely.
Fun. So, thank you very much. I'm going to cut this short here because we could just keep talking forever, really. And we've actually made it through most of this video without hysterics, which is quite a win for us. So, we'll hopefully see you in a video soon. Bye! Hello, I'm Gemma, and this is NonFic Books.
That's a good start.
Right, yes. Oh, this is the problem about doing this with you.
I have said nothing.
No, it's all good. So, thank you very much, Becky, for coming and talking about your book. That was Warfare and Weaponry in Dynastic Egypt. And thank you very much.
It's also Dynastic Egypt.
Dynastic.
Sorry. It's fine, we're good. Sorry.
So thank you very much for Becky for... Oh god.
This is totally fine.
That's why we're not allowed to sit together and do it. That's just bad. So thank you very much to Becky for coming and talking about her book, Warfare and Weaponry in Dynastic Egypt. Bollocks! This is the book. Go and read it. It's really good. I'll put a link down below to where you can get it. And if you've got any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Bye!